She's going to get softer, not because she's healed, not because she's grown. She's going to get softer because you stopped being available, and softness is what desperate people use when leverage runs out. You'll get the good morning text you begged for 6 months ago. You'll get the I miss you she couldn't say when it actually mattered. You'll get eye contact that lingers a second too long, a laugh that's a little too warm, a version of her that feels like the one you fell for in the first place. And it will feel like a miracle. It is not a miracle. It's a symptom. Women don't panic when they think they still have you. They panic when the math changes, when the person who used to orbit them stops showing up in the sky at all. So here's the question that's going to sit in your chest for the rest of this video. If she only gets warm the moment she senses she's losing you, did she ever actually want you? Or did she just want to be the one deciding when this ends? If you're watching this, I already know something about where you are. You're checking her Instagram story views at 1 a.m. and building entire narratives out of who liked what. You're replaying the last conversation on a loop, hunting for the exact sentence where it all went wrong, like there's a fix somewhere in there if you just look hard enough. Maybe she's already reached out again. Maybe she hasn't, and the silence is louder than anything she could actually say. Either way, you're not crazy and you're not weak for feeling this. You're a person whose nervous system got wired to another person, and that wiring doesn't just switch off because the relationship did. But I want to be straight with you before we go any further, because most of what gets said about this topic online is either bitter nonsense from guys who never healed, or hollow positivity that tells you to just heal king, without explaining a single mechanism of what's actually happening in her mind. This video is neither of those things. What you're about to learn is the actual psychological blueprint behind why women change, sometimes dramatically, the moment they sense a man is genuinely gone. Not performing gone, not gone for 2 days and posting gym selfies gone, actually internally, emotionally gone. We're going to walk through why that shift happens, what it means, what it doesn't mean, and this is the part almost nobody explains properly: how you actually use this understanding without turning yourself into a manipulator or a man just running games to win someone back. Here's my promise to you. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what's happening behind her sudden warmth, her sudden distance, or her sudden silence, and you'll stop interpreting her behavior through panic and start interpreting it through psychology. That distinction is the difference between a man who reacts and a man who understands. Two things to sit with as we go. First, the moment a woman knows she's lost you is rarely a single dramatic event. It's a threshold, and I'm going to show you exactly where that threshold sits and why most men walk right past it without noticing. Second, what she does after crossing that threshold will tell you more truth about her actual feelings for you than anything she did during the entire relationship, because fear-driven behavior doesn't lie the way comfortable behavior does. Now, before we get into the mechanics of what happens in her mind, I need you to let go of one belief that's been sabotaging men for as long as this topic has existed: the belief that her behavior after loss is proof of love. It's not proof of love, it's proof of loss aversion. Those are two very different animals wearing the same jacket, and confusing them is exactly how good men end up back in relationships that were never built to hold them. Let's get into it. Most men believe that when a woman starts reaching out, softening, getting nostalgic, or suddenly available after a breakup, it means she's realized what she lost and wants him back specifically. That's the story that feels good. It's also, in most cases, incomplete. Here's what's actually happening underneath. Psychologists call it loss aversion, the well-documented tendency for humans to feel the pain of losing something roughly twice as intensely as the pleasure of gaining it. This isn't a female trait, it's a human trait. But here's where it gets interesting for our purposes. Loss aversion doesn't activate around the object itself. It activates around the shift in status of that object, the moment something goes from available to me to no longer available to me. Think about it this way: a phone sitting in your drawer that you never use doesn't feel valuable. The same phone, the moment someone tells you it's the last one in stock and they're about to sell it to someone else, suddenly it matters. Nothing about the phone changed. The perceived scarcity changed. You are the phone in this metaphor. I know that's not romantic. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be true. Now, here's the part that separates surface-level breakup advice from something you can actually use. This reaction isn't really about you as a specific, irreplaceable person. In the early stage, it's about the loss of a role. You held a position in her life, a source of attention, validation, comfort. Backup, familiarity, identity, and when that position becomes vacant, something in her reacts to the vacancy before it reacts to you. This is where cognitive dissonance comes in. Somewhere in her mind, she has a story about the breakup. Maybe he wasn't ready. Maybe he was too much. Maybe it just wasn't right. And that story lets her walk away clean. But the moment she sees you actually moving on, not performing it, actually living it, that story starts to crack against the evidence in front of her. A woman who tells herself he wasn't that invested has to explain why the man she describes as uninvested is suddenly unreachable, thriving, and no longer chasing. The mind hates unresolved contradiction. It will do almost anything to close that gap, and reaching out to you is often the fastest way to close it. Let me give you a real scenario, one of the most common patterns I see. A woman ends things, tells her friends some version of, I just needed space, or he was too clingy. For weeks, nothing. Then she sees through a mutual friend, through social media, through the simple absence of his texts, that he's not falling apart. He's not begging. He's not spiraling in the group chat. He's just gone, present in his own life, absent from hers. That absence doesn't read to her as he's fine without me. In the beginning, it often reads as, wait, is he actually fine without me? And that question is uncomfortable in a way that a woman with an unresolved ego investment cannot simply ignore. This is ego protection at work. Most people, regardless of gender, need to believe they were the one who held the power in a situation, especially one that touched their sense of desirability. When a man disappears calmly instead of unraveling, it removes her ability to confirm that story. So she probes, a like here, a story view, a hey stranger text that seems casual but is actually a psychological temperature check. Here's your micro cliffhanger for this section. What she does with the information she gathers from that probe, whether she pushes closer or retreats again, depends almost entirely on one variable most men completely misjudge. We're going to name that variable and show you exactly how to work with it, not against it, starting now. That variable is this. Does engaging with you feel like regaining control, or does it feel like risking further loss of control? Everything you do from this point forward should be filtered through that single question. Let's break down exactly how to build a version of yourself that answers it correctly, step by step. Step 1. Build genuine detachment, not perform detachment. The action here is simple to say and hard to do. You stop orchestrating your behavior around her potential reaction. You're not going quiet to make her chase. You're going quiet because your attention has somewhere better to go, back into your own life. The psychology behind this matters more than the tactic itself. Remember, she's reacting to a vacancy, to genuine unpredictability, to the felt sense that you are no longer orbiting her. If your silence is secretly loaded with hope, if you're checking your phone every 10 minutes waiting for her to text, that energy leaks. People, especially people who knew you intimately, can sense performed calm from a mile away. It reads as try hard, and try hard confirms her original story instead of cracking it. The common mistake here is men who go quiet for exactly 4 days, convince themselves they've done the no contact thing, and then send a paragraph explaining their growth. That's not detachment. That's a countdown timer with a text attached. Real detachment has no deadline because it isn't a tactic. It's a byproduct of you actually rebuilding a life that doesn't have a her-shaped hole waiting to be filled the second she resurfaces. Step 2. Let her effort be real before you respond to it. When she does reach out, and I want you to notice I said when a pattern starts, not the first single message. The action is to respond at the level of investment she's showing, not above it. If she sends one low-effort message, you can be warm, brief, and unavailable in tone. You do not owe a paragraph to a "Hey stranger." Why this works? Her nervous system is testing whether re-engaging with you restores her sense of control or threatens it further. If you respond instantly with high emotional intensity to a low-effort message, you hand the control straight back to her, confirming that you're still orbiting just quietly this time. If you match her energy calmly, without punishing her and without rewarding her disproportionately, you stay a stable, self-possessed presence rather than a reactivated chase target. The most common mistake here is overcorrecting into coldness as a power move. That's not detachment either. That's just a different flavor of performance. And manipulative silence is just as transparent as manipulative enthusiasm. The goal isn't to punish her, it's to be genuinely unbothered, which, paradoxically, is the single most attractive and most difficult state to actually inhabit. Step 3. Do not explain yourself, defend yourself, or relitigate the breakup. The moment a woman senses she's losing a man, one of her most common instincts is to reopen old arguments, not necessarily to resolve them, but to see if you'll still fight for a resolution the way you might have during the relationship. The action here is to decline that invitation calmly and without drama. The psychology, relitigating the breakup, puts you back in the position of trying to convince her of something, and trying to convince someone of your worth is the exact posture that got devalued in the first place. Confidence doesn't argue for itself. It states its position once, if at all, and lets the other person do what they will with it. The common mistake is mistaking silence for weakness and feeling like you need to set the record straight one more time. You don't. Every time you re-explain, re-justify, or redefend, you hand her a role, judge of your worth, that you should have quietly resigned from the day she ended things. Step 4. Rebuild your own standard. Before you consider rebuilding the relationship. This is the step almost nobody talks about because it's the least dramatic and the most important. The action is to use this window of her reflection to actually change something real about your life, your discipline, your body, your finances, your friendships, your ambition, your emotional regulation. Not for her. For the man who has to live in your body for the next 50 years. The psychology is straightforward. Whatever version of you she's reacting to right now was the version that existed in the relationship that ended. If she does come back and nothing has actually changed in you, you're not solving the problem, you're just delaying its recurrence. Attraction and respect are downstream of a man's actual standard for his own life, not downstream of clever texting strategy. The most common mistake is treating this entire process as a waiting room for her decision instead of a construction site for your own life. Men who treat it as a waiting room stay emotionally frozen, checking their phone, measuring their worth by her response time. Men who treat it as a construction site come out the other side, upgraded regardless of what she decides. And that, more than any tactic in this video, is what actually makes a woman reconsider someone she once had. I want to talk to you directly now, not about her, about you. Somewhere in the last few minutes, a part of your brain has probably already started doing the math, counting days, guessing timelines, wondering exactly when she'll text, exactly what she'll say, exactly how this ends. I need you to notice that instinct because it's the same instinct that got you here in the first place. The anxious, over-monitoring, hyper-vigilant part of you that needs an answer right now is not the part of you that heals. It's the part of you that stays stuck in a loop, mistaking motion for progress. Here's the reframe I want you to actually take with you. This period isn't a waiting room outside her decision. It stops being about her the moment you stop measuring your days by whether she reached out. Every hour you spend refreshing, rereading, predicting, that's an hour spent auditioning for a role in someone else's unfinished story instead of directing your own. Patience in this context isn't passive. People misunderstand that word. Patience here is active restraint, the discipline to keep building your life at full intensity while deliberately not chasing an outcome you can't control. You can't control her timeline. You can't control her ego, her fear, her readiness, her pride. What you can control is whether the man on the other side of this, the one she eventually does or doesn't come back to, is someone worth coming back to at all. I'll tell you something that took me a long time to actually believe instead of just repeat. The outcome you're anxious about is usually not the outcome that matters. Whether she texts you next Tuesday is not the thing that determines your life. Whether you become a man who doesn't need her to text you next Tuesday, that's the thing that determines your life. One of those outcomes is entirely outside your hands. The other one is being built right now, in exactly the choices you make in the next 30 days, whether she's watching or not. So if you're overthinking every notification, every read receipt, every silence, I want you to ask yourself one honest question. Are you living or are you waiting? Because those two states can look identical from the outside and feel completely different from the inside. A man who's waiting has quietly outsourced his peace to someone else's phone. A man who's living has taken it back. She may come back, she may not. Both outcomes can coexist with the same truth, you becoming the kind of man whose presence was never something to be casually gambled with in the first place, rebuilt not for revenge, not for a comeback story, but because you deserve to be a whole person independent of anyone's decision about you. That's the shift, not how do I get her back. but who am I becoming regardless of whether she comes back? One of those questions keeps you frozen, the other one moves you forward no matter what she chooses. If this video gave you some clarity today, do me a favor, hit subscribe because we go deep on this kind of thing regularly, and drop a comment below telling me where you're at right now. I read every single one, and honestly, some of the most important things I've said in these videos came from what you all shared in the comments first.